So hello everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar about the auditor and the food safety management system. I am very pleased today to welcome three eminent guests, namely Erika Stewart from GFSI. Welcome, Erika.
Hi, Bruno. Thanks for having me.
We also have Faisal Belatif from Eurofins. Hello, Faisal.
Hi, Bruno. Thank you for your invitation.
And last but not least, John Carter from Ferrero.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. So we have people joining from France. Hello, Mark from Denmark. Hi, Daniela from Greece. Hi, Thomas from Honduras. Hello, Juan Pablo from Philippines. From Venezuela. So it's and also hello, Catherine from France. So I'm very pleased really to be able to present this webinar to you. So we will be talking about one of the key elements in food safety management systems, which is the auditor. But before, I would like to introduce my guests, starting with Erika. So Erika is the director of the Global Food Safety Initiative at the Consumer Goods Forum. For those who don't know, the Consumer Goods Forum is a global industry network which is working with more than 400 member companies from different aspects of the industry, and the aim is to better lives through better business, to support this, right? And Erika is responsible to define the strategic development roadmap of the GFSI, to steer the working groups and local groups all over the world, and to oversee the collaboration with key private and public partnerships, which is one of the areas I would say where GFSI has done a lot of improvements in the last years. And recently, GFSI published this road to the top, or Erika will explain to race. It's not the road; it's a race to the top. And so, her objective that she will share with us is, of course, to expand and strengthen the ability to lead food safety advancement globally and have this GFSI vision of safe food for consumers everywhere. Before doing that, she has been working for 14 years in the UK food manufacturers, 6 years in food safety academia, and 5 years in the UK government office for product safety and standards. So thank you, Erika, for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Again. Faisal Belatif is the general manager of Eurofins Food Assurance business line. He has a deep expertise and, may I say, a long experience on the audit management, not only with Eurofins, which certification activity he started, but also through the participation in international working groups, including at GFSI, where he was vice chair of the former auditor competence work group, and with different certification program that Eurofins is running now. So also, again, welcome, Faisal.
Merci.
And John Carter, who's a globally recognized leader in consumer goods safety and quality, with executive level technical leadership experience, and it's interesting in both retail and food manufacturers. And he's currently running the entire European quality agenda at Ferrero, based in Luxembourg, and not in Italy, as some may think. And he was also a former board member of the Global Food Safety Initiative and has a record in driving cultural change in complex multinational environment, experience in multiple food sector. And interesting enough, he started his career as an auditor.
More or less, yeah.
more or less. That's
And
one
now
of the
I'm drinking liquid Nutella as we speak. So.
liquid, and that was the advertising section of the
Absolutely.
webinar. It's allowed, no problem. So the first topic of our webinar is about the audit and the auditor. So let's talk about them. And to set the scene, we all know that there are different types of audits. We often talk and read about first-party audits, second-party audits, third-party audits. I would even add a fourth-party audit if we think about the top of the pyramid. The first-party audit is the ones that we, as food manufacturers, we do to make sure that our management systems and food safety management systems are running well. This is really key in all this management system, and it's one of the key requirements in the GFSI recognized standards. Then when we audit our suppliers, that's when we talk about second-party audit, and the third-party audit is when we are audited by a third party who gives us this certification. The fourth layer that I wanted to add was the accreditation bodies and the integrated program audits, which are now more and more active all across the GFSI standards, to make sure that all the certification programs are running well. And on top of that, we can also add the GFSI benchmarking audits that started some years ago, to make sure also that the certification programs owner are respecting the rules set by the GFSI. And also, what we can say in this panorama is that, of course, the second-party audited companies have also potentially internal audits, and have also certification audits, and they also audit their own suppliers. So there are audits, I would say, all over the place, and this is possible thanks to one function that we could pay tribute to, the auditor, who is at the same time a superhero and juggler, who has to know a lot of topics. Of course, the standards, regulation, the process, risk. We are talking about food safety audits. Of course, food safety, HACCP, microbiological risk, foreign bodies, chemical risk, and year after year, other topics come like food defense, food fraud, food safety culture, which is something he has also to address since recently, as it is now a requirement coming in all the standards. He also has, and this is taking from the 19011 ISO standard, to have a lot of soft skills. He has to be ethical, collaborative, diplomatic, self-reliant, culturally sensitive, among other things. And on top, he has to be a great organizer, planning in particular, and communicator. So this is really, that's why I call him the superhero of food safety, and maybe we should do more recognition to him. And in the webinar, we posted a poll, and interestingly enough, when we talk about what are the most important skills that an auditor should have, almost 50% say the first one is soft skills. Then come auditing skills, then management skills, and at the end, technical skills. So my question to you guys, and I would start to, sorry. I will start with John. And John, so as a food manufacturer today and retailer yesterday, or the day before yesterday, how important are for you supplier audits? And maybe you can share with us what are the skills, or which are the skills that are for you the most important to be an auditor.
Well, I mean, there's before and after COVID, of course, which is the elephant in the room or in the world at the moment. Of course, we have significantly limited our supplier auditing, as I'm sure many other companies have done in the last year. But that hasn't lessened the importance of, let's say, not auditing, but understanding the risk in the supplier base. For me, there's a couple of elements of that. As you mentioned earlier, I've worked now for several companies in quality assurance with auditing as a central function, in Kraft Mondelez, in Metro, in Danone, and now in Ferrero. And for me, there is two types of auditing which we would see. The GFSI audit for me, which I'm a passionate supporter of, is the license to operate. And I don't want to see necessarily any of the company audits of our suppliers duplicating the GFSI exercise. So if you have a recognized scheme and you have a food safety certification, that is your card to entry to work with a company like Ferrero. Beyond that, then the supplier audit becomes sort of a critical relationship build. It may be that we audit, we may call it a technical visit, depending on the company you are. It's about reinforcing the trust you have with the supplier based on that early license to operate. And I therefore would see that the quality professionals within the company where I'm managing should be able to answer the question: are these guys capable? Do you trust them? Are they delivering, and so on? And the audit is part, but not only part of that aspect. In the last year, the number of physical audits we've performed are significantly reduced. And I think we're going to talk later on about remote auditing. I think in that last year, we've been able to maintain a level of trust. Do we think we can do without audits? Absolutely not. We will need to come back to some level of physical interaction with our suppliers going forward, because that's where trust comes from. I guess I'll stop there.
Yeah, thank you. So so indeed, audit is part of this trust finding or fact finding that we have between companies.
Yep.
And Faisal, to yourself as a representative of a certification body, what would be the main expectation that you have regarding auditors in terms of skills?
I would say regarding the skills, I would talk about ethical behavior. This is really important and key when it comes to integrity, because the auditors are the interface and the single interface, unique interface between a word which is behind the scene and another word which is the front stage. They are representing certification bodies. They are representing the all stakeholders behind. They are representing the CPOs. I mean, speaking loud, and they are fact or subject to exposure, because the situations they are auditing is really complex. We're talking here about huge stakes of commercial stakes, talking about why manufacturers are seeking for certification. I mean, we know they have to grant and show that they have reached a level of security or safety which is important, thanks to the compliance to higher standards that are benchmarked by GFSI. So this is really important to them. So the representation of our auditors is really important, and we need to support them. We will talk about later, and thank you very much for your slides. We know that they are superheroes. They are my heroes. I mean, they are really, we need to just keep in mind, I'm not here talking about prerequisites to become an auditor. We'll talk about this later, but they need to know, when you say food safety or hygiene, we're talking about several disciplines. We're talking about, for example, microbiology. But if you take only microbiology, where inside you have bacteria, but you have also virus, and you have also toxins. We're talking about contaminants. Inside this, you have heavy metals, you have vet drugs, you have pesticides. You can have also GMOs. When you talk about anything, I mean, and plenty of other disciplines. We're expecting from those guys to be experts in each single hazard or each single problem, which is really tremendous high. I mean, it's really complex for them. So this is why We will talk later about the training and qualification path, but for now, main expectations for them is when they grant those kind of prerequisites is to show integrity and to show ethical behavior during their mission. This is for now.
Thank you, Faisal. So the integrity is on top for you.
Yeah.
And Erica, so as I mentioned, internal audits are part of the top requirements that in the GFSI recognize the standards in order to assess the effectiveness of the system. Are there any evolution planned in this area in the next year at the GFSI level? Generally specifically about internal audits and maybe more generally about auditors?
Yeah, okay, thank you, Bruno. So it's a nice question. So hello, good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, wherever it is, or good evening, perhaps even. It's nice to see you and not see you. This is a real cool opportunity. When I arrived at GFSI, I always said I'm kind of fed up with people talking on GFSI's behalf. So it's always really nice to have an opportunity to come and talk for oneself. So thanks for the opportunity. As far as the question's concerned, it's a good one. But I mean, broadly speaking, as anybody who is familiar, and I'm making a very arrogant assumption, of course, that many of the people, indeed most of the people here, will know what GFSI is and does and so forth. But if anybody doesn't, then please let me know, and I'm happy to cover some other ground. But in terms of that particular question, as I'm sure most people will know, we have only just within the last year launched our latest version of our benchmarking requirements, the requirements against which all of the recognised certification programme owners submit their own private standards for recognition by us, and we've only just launched it. And it's called version 2020, which was very annoying to a lot of people I know, because we were going 1, 2, 3, 4, and then suddenly we went, 20, that sounds like a good number. But it's version 2020, and we're underway with recognising our existing CPOs and a few new entrants to the market against that version. And I think it's fair to say one of the challenges that we faced in the past is this allegation that we just keep changing things, ad infinitum, and that's not the case. We will only move the benchmark in a direction which is only up, by the way, if we feel that there is something absolutely fundamental to food safety that's missing. So we need to give version 2020 time to do its thing. We need to give people the time to receive it, be in receipt of it, and be in receipt of the audits that are recognised against it, and see how it feels before, obviously, we would consider doing anything else. And I think it's fair to say that there is some smoke and mirrors around the process of how we shape the benchmark. But broadly speaking, we do it with our members. So with CGF membership is a membership organisation, and our members, the top food safety brains in the biggest businesses in the world, come and help us shape it based on their own experience, based on their own credentials, alongside, of course, with our operational stakeholders, those that actually are doing the doing, because GFSI doesn't do the doing, thankfully, because that's actually quite a hard job. So the long answer to the short question is nothing planned yet, but let's see how version 2020 goes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Erica, for setting the scene of the GFSI and the benchmarking underway. So, the second question I propose you to share is, and I've got several persons who have contacted me in the last weeks, I must say, and that was also one of the reasons why the idea of this webinar came, is people contact me and say, how do I become an auditor? And so what I wanted to share with you is a path to become an auditor that I have drafted based on different documents, the GFSI document and some of the GFSI benchmark schemes. And what we can say is that first, of course, to become an auditor, you need to have a food-related or bioscience degree of some level of education in the food field. Then, depending on the standards, you need between 2 and 5 years experience in the food also in the food world, generally speaking. So it can be in retail, of course, it can be the inspection area, it can be also in the manufacturing part. Then you need some trainings on top of this experience. You need a hazard training, at least 2 days. You need auditor training, at least 5 days, which is the certification program owner own training or ERCA, IRCA recognized training. Then you have some examinations. There some certification program owners have a certification. In the current benchmarking document, there is also an examination from the GFSI, which was planned, but I think there is some changes there. I also had questions there. And in this process, I think you need, of course, to have a certification body, to find a certification body with which where you will be able to do audits, of course, or for which you will do your audits. Then you need audit experience, which is maybe one of the tricky points, because you need at least 10 audits before you can start to be recognized. And during one of these audits, you need to be witnessed by a senior auditor or recognized auditor to really get your final approval. I think that one of the topics is also that all this is good for one production scope, but if you want to have several production scopes, then you want to have, or you should have, the same level of audit experience, and sometimes also there are some requirements about experience, work experience in these areas. And then you are approved auditor, but you need to maintain this qualification through yearly trainings, some done at the certification body, then other done from the certification program owners. Then you have to do at least 5 audits per year, and you need to be witnessed. So it's really quite a long journey, I would say. And today, as we know, we are missing auditors. Everybody's complaining that these auditors are missing. So my question would be now to Faisal. The first is, how do you see this path to become an auditor today? And how can we encourage younger people to go through this career, which remains very interesting but challenging?
It's a very good question and tough question. I mean, I would say, first of all, we are hiring. We are hiring and hiring and hiring every day, every second, every hour since 20 years. We are hiring auditors because the path to go, I mean, to become an auditor, as you show before, I mean, it takes 24 months. I mean, when we can do it quickly, it's 18 months, or it can take maybe 30 months. It's really a huge work for them. And this is why they are superheroes from the starting point. We are missing auditors, and this is really a key problem, because every stakeholder, every retailer, every large manufacturer, every single stakeholder that is requiring internal audits or second-party audits, those people are using the highest qualified auditors on the market. And those people that are qualified in the market are those who are doing certification programs, certification audits. So when you think about number of certification audits in the world and number of auditors, I mean, of course, we are increasing numbers of certificates while we are decreasing number of auditors with their scopes. So how can I see this path? I would like to share with you some ideas. We don't have any problem to attract people. We can convince people, we can convince food engineers, we can convince food professionals to switch from quality managers to auditing or to auditors or to lead auditors. This is something which it's not very complex. The problem is to train and to keep the auditors on path. Why are we facing problems? The criteria for qualifications these last 10 years are really becoming tougher and tougher. It's very complex. When you compare those old auditors that are now 60, around 60, they were qualified when they started very easily, or let's say not very easily, they were qualified easily and easily for larger scopes. We are familiar with people about 60 that have, for example, 10 or 13 category of products that are in their own scope of qualifications. Today, when we succeed to qualify one auditor for one CPO, for one standard, for example, they may, at the best, have 2 or 3 category of products. What this means? This means that for the same number of certificates, the same number of audits, we need more individuals to cover the scopes of those category of products. We're not here talking about increasing demands of audits. We're talking about just covering the diversity of scopes of qualifications. Because these last years, thanks to the benchmarking requirements of GFSI, thanks to every requirements of each of the CPOs, because the CPO's requirements for qualifications are not exactly the same. Some are overlapping, some are good, some are not good. But however, I mean, we cannot be qualified for one CPO, for one standards, which is accepted 100% by another standard. So we need auditors to be qualified for each of the standards, or inside each standard, we need them to be qualified for each category of products. So this is about qualification. So we know how to help those people, how to help auditors to grow, to get qualified, to find second-party audit for them to gain experience. We offer many, we offer a good context for that. The main question and the main problem, Bruno, here is not how to attract them and how to train. It's costing money, it's costing time, we know everything, okay? The problem is now how to keep them on track. Certification audits are becoming really very complex, as I said before. Exposure to pressure is high. Exposure to pressure is high, really high. And the service protocols, I mean the rules of certification from CPOs, are really becoming complex. The more we are moving forward, the more the complexity of protocols is becoming something huge. And auditors need to understand everything, to know it by heart, and also to provide reports. Reports are taking more and more time. So, and the checklists of audits are really very precise, so that they feel that certification is like inspection. So we are here, talking about more the role of the auditors who wants to be to get emancipated from the checklist, which is not possible now with third-party certification. So attracting people might be easy. Keeping them on track and motivated will be complicated, because they are very much under pressure of the ongoing maintenance for qualifications. As you said before, we're talking about witness audit, but also calibration training, but also some other exams to extend their scopes. It's really very complex for them. So it's really a warning here. And the warning is how to make sure that the auditors are really, we are using the added value of the auditor on the field as an auditor, and not as an administrative support to write a very detailed report of audits, which is really taking time for everybody, and time and money. And my last word here is, again, to come back to the usage of those certificates, let's say qualified auditors for certification audits. Those are very much, I mean, the pressure we do have is that they are required everywhere. They are required for the second-party audits that are used by retailers and by food manufacturers, which is fine. This is giving them diversity of business. They cannot do certification every time, every week, so that's fine. The only problem is that the investment in attraction, hiring, training is currently only on the shoulders of certification bodies, and we need help. We need help from all the other stakeholders. We need help to make sure that we can help young auditors to get into the market. We need help because I cannot, for example, for John, I cannot send him a junior auditor in his big factories to conduct a second-party audit. He will require somebody who is highly qualified. And this person who is highly qualified, it's my responsibility to qualify this person. So if we qualify this, so we have a reduction of resources, a huge demand from second-party audits and third-party audits, and we, again, we really need help and cooperation from all stakeholders.
Thank you, Faisal. So, John, how can you help Faisal there to get this young auditors?
My objective is not to help him. My objective is to get the highest quality auditors. No,
How can we get this?
To be honest, this is a really interesting. I hadn't, I guess, fully appreciated the complexity of getting the people. So I think already this webinar for me has been quite interesting by that one perspective on its own, because there's a real danger that the companies like my company, like Ferrero, takes this stuff for granted. And I think there's also a tendency sometimes, maybe not recently, but certainly in my career, where I've had people undermine the principles of GFSI by complaining about a specific audit result. And this in fact makes me very upset, because I think if you have an example, a fact-based example of an audit which was not particularly good, maybe the auditor was not fully qualified, maybe there was an ethical question, then you have an obligation to go back to the scheme owner, the CPU, and say something because we are in this together, and we should be improving through the feedback process. You know, if there's something that didn't work, let's try and fix it together, and not try to step out of GFSI or step out of one of the schemes because of that. I don't know if that helps Faisal necessarily, but you know, I think this sense of collaboration and communication together, the GFSI itself has a role to bring simplicity. The whole point of GFSI is to simplify. You know, one certified, accepted everywhere, and we have a lot of work, and we are in continual loops to reinforce that message, to try to achieve it. It's up to leaders in the industry, I think, to make sure that we don't create complexity by trying to duplicate. You know, as I said earlier when in the introduction, I want to rely completely for my license to operate on the principles of GFSI. And then anything that I have internally becomes then an understanding of trust or relationship building, trust building between collaborators, whether it's suppliers or logistic partners or whoever. But you know, I think attracting auditors, and maybe you know one of the ways that we can help Faisal and the entire auditor population out there is to, I think we have a question later on this, is to articulate how fantastic this is as a career, both if you stay in auditing and if you move on to something else. And in both cases, I think you need both. You need the what we call in Ferrero the old foxes who know everything, and then they can be a source of wisdom to the industry. And then you need the kind of the hothouse nurturing effect of perhaps younger auditors who then go through the system and then either stay in auditing or move to something else. And I think if you can explain what a fantastic career this is and how important the job is, and then maybe, you know, Faisal's challenge of complexity is addressed by a new wave of excited, inspired quality professionals. But it's not easy, my friends. It's not easy, I realize.
Thank you. And I like how also you pass the ball from Faisal to John.
Not my problem.
It's also, we have to work within the GFSI to improve the situation. So Erika, how could you share with us which kind of initiatives GFSI has to encourage this capacity building at the auditor level?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, it's clear, isn't it, just listening to Faisal and John, what a real challenge this is, you know, and one ignores this challenge, not just of auditor competence and training and qualifications and professional development, but also the dearth of, you know, young, bright, brilliant people coming into this as a profession. So you ignore those things at your peril. I think it's fair to say that, you know, we've had a number of goes at this over the years. GFSI's had a number of attempts at this, all predating my tenure, I hasten to add, and that's not in a derisory way at all, but just, you know, it just goes to show that even the brightest and the most collaborative people really at the sharp end of this problem haven't managed to fix it. But GFSI has made a commitment to try and lead on this particular issue. And as you mentioned earlier, Bruno, we have this initiative called the Race to the Top, and we launched it at our conference in Seattle a year ago this week. I can't believe it. It's a year ago this this week, but it certainly is. And we spent the whole of 2020, amongst other things, shaping, the high level framework into something that could manifest itself as something operational. And essentially what we concluded is that harmonization, as John said, is the name of our game. If there's any success we've had over the years, it's in that area, and a harmonized approach to auditor competence, I think, is the word that we would like to adopt. So this is the sort of hybrid of, skills, knowledge and behavior, not just qualifications. This is the whole complete package. And what does good look like? What does good look like? And, just in the dialogue today, not everybody agrees on the most important skills and the most important knowledge and the most important behaviors. Everybody has a view on this. So I think there's two things that GFSI through the Race to the Top is taking a lead on. The first is absolutely to say that this is a career, oh my goodness, what a job this is, that should rightly attract the brightest and the most ambitious and the most dynamic, in our food safety community. And, whether it does or whether it doesn't, there's no obvious way for anyone within the food, safety sector to see a route through. How do I get from where I am to this job? What does that look like? There's no comprehensive, professional development framework for food safety auditors, which is so incredibly weird, given that it is such a professional job and it's such a safety critical job, and the whole of our ecosystem, all of us, relies on these guys, these superheroes, as you've called them, and that's quite right. So the idea that there's no parallel in food safety auditing as there is in other professions, accountancy and law, and the list goes on, and aeronautics. And so we've been taking a look, we've been looking across other environments and saying, well, what do professional development frameworks look like where there are multiple entry points? We feel that we should take a lead on this and bring people together to discuss it and shape it in a way that makes it much more accessible for people to see. And then alongside the professional development framework, working together to understand, what the critical elements of a food safety auditor training program should look like. So this is, going back to our core genesis, the thing that we're good at, which is a harmonized approach to auditor competence and training, and almost more importantly, ongoing professional development, where everybody is following the same, roadmap. To adopt a Boris term, my God, I sound like Boris. This is dreadful. But to adapt a roadmap for that, and then to iron out the challenges around auditors having to do multiple different things for multiple different organisations that they audit for. That's not helpful to anybody. So trying to bring some parity, some consistency to that, and obviously working with our stakeholders to do that and to shape that. We have some ideas. Our members have some ideas, but that is essentially what we are doing and what we are moving forward with to shape that. And actually, we've made quite a lot of progress with the help of many of you, I'm sure, on the webinar today. And we will have something to consult on by the end of March. So we'll be welcoming people to give us some feedback and some comments on that. But, we've taken up the challenge. We accept we have a very, very strong role to play, and we welcome the opportunity to really drive this forward and to try and help Faisal and all of his colleagues.
Thank you, Erica. So Auditor is at the center of the work of GFSI. This capability development and harmonization, as you said. So it's good to hear. And of course, the recognition, I think, is key. And there are different levels of recognition, but I think that there are some countries, even in Europe, where the engagement of auditors is really poorly recognized, I must say. So before we take a round of questions, I would like to move to the last of these topics that we addressed today, which is the future of audit. And we have already, of course, highlighted some topics already, and I would put it in these three three dimensions or three directions. One, which is of course the remote auditing, which we have been forced, for the reasons that everybody knows, to take and to adopt. I must say also differently, because there are some CPO, certification program owners, have done and are doing or accepting remote certification auditing. Some other don't accept it. One that I know better than the others, IFS, has recently launched interesting approach with a split assessment, with a part where is on site and a part remote. So I think this is the question would be, remote auditing, is it going to stay after the situation that we are living together? The second aspect is, or question would be around data sharing. So because John talked about trust, and would a full transparent world need auditors? If we had the possibility to have the data of the suppliers, the data we need in a full transparent way. And the least but not last, or last but not least element, and there are others, but is how artificial intelligence may help the auditors in this in carrying this burden Faisal was talking about. I know that some CPOs, and there were examples at the last GFSI conference, that there will be, I'm sure, at the next one, how we can use artificial intelligence to analyze information, to help probably with the reports. And so these are the elements of reflection that I propose to you. And so bear with me. So my question would be to Erica. So how do you see the evolution of the role of the auditors, the on-site audit? Do you think that it will disappear someday, this on-site audit, and that everything can be done remotely?
Well, you're asking the wrong person, because I'm not technically competent to answer that question, and so far away from the front line of this. This is not a question for me to answer. This is a question for our community to work together to answer. I think fundamentally, the role of the auditor will not change. The role of the auditor will always remain a constant, and the requirement to audit will remain a constant. I think the AI feature is a bit interesting, because it's a bit of that blurring of the line between monitoring, continual monitoring and audit, and where do those two things come together? I think that needs further explanation. But I think it's the skills and competencies, not just of the auditors themselves, but it's we're back to the same challenge, but also those in receipt of different types of audits that will become a very interesting feature of how we move forward. But is technology here to stay? Oh my God, hell yes. Are interesting, innovative, dynamic approaches to auditing here to stay? Absolutely, 100%. And the opportunity that this provides us as an industry with is really exciting. What we need to do, however, is understand what the capabilities are, what can be done legitimately, and what fundamentally can't be done fully remotely to enable a situation where trust and confidence in audit outcomes, which is essentially safe food, is maintained. And it's that really interesting, anxious sort of juxtaposition that we're in at the moment, where we're going, well, we really, really want this, we really, really need it, but does it really work? And what combination of features, not just tech, but the individuals, those on receipt of the audits, what's the app, so what does good look like? What is the combination of features that could be designed into a process that would enable everybody to have trust and confidence in the outcome? And that's the bit that, we feel quite far removed from. As most people will know, we've gone as far as we feel we can at this point, because here's the reason why. Even in the face of a global pandemic, it would not be right for GFSI to make a short-term move and move a whole market. that would not be right. With the intention of moving a market and then potentially retreating from it. So this idea, that we could have said, oh yes, crack on while we've got a global pandemic, but when we don't want this anymore, when our members say, oh actually it was rubbish, it didn't work and it was a disaster, that we then move a market back. That is not where we're at. So we have to ask for help, and we have to wait for people to come with us and offer up the evidence that this fully remote thing can deliver the same level of outcomes. We're very content with a hybrid. We're very content that people are road testing this without us. We're very happy that they're doing that and pushing the boundaries, and we hope very much that people will share those insights with us to help inform what we do next.
Okay. Thank you, Erica. And, John, so this level of trust and transparency that you had, of trust that you were talking about, would transparency help you to avoid auditing if there was this full transparency in data sharing?
Yeah, obviously I was thinking about the conversation while you and Erica were both talking. Firstly, I think, can the food industry survive without auditing? The answer is yes, because auditing is a relatively recent phenomenon in the last 50 years, and the food industry has been going for as long as humanity. So clearly, we can make food without auditing. However, it's probably fair to say that food safety has improved hugely and significantly with the advent of HACCP, with the advent of ISO 9000, and with the advent after that of this kind of auditing, which was then codified within GFSI. And not only, by the way, but within GFSI predominantly. So I think what we've done with the audit model has been to transform the food industry into something which has a hugely different level of trust than what it was 50 years ago. That said, the last year has given the entire race of humanity pause for thought about how things should be structured, and we have this year probably more technology at our fingertips than we've had ever. So we start to think about the opportunities of virtual auditing, remote auditing, which we wouldn't have been thinkable even 5 or 10 years ago. And did it work in the short term? I think it did. Certainly for internal audits within Ferrero, for example, I think there might even be a couple of Ferrero auditors listening to this. I think what they've done is spectacular. And in terms of the way that, I read reports for our internal factory audits, which are quite long and detailed, you would not know that this was not a physical audit if you didn't know that we weren't traveling. Having said that, what are you missing? And there's a human element to auditing. The word audit means to listen in Latin. So there's a human element to an auditor behavior in a factory that for me is irreplaceable. And it comes back to that word of trust as well. So we have people go into our factories, our supply chains, our value chains, to listen to the reality, to take a snapshot of the reality, and to ask difficult questions like, what's behind that door? I'm an ex-auditor. What's that smell? Why does it smell funny in here? And you cannot do that with a smartphone. You don't know what you're missing. So I think 2020 was an extraordinary experiment, and it's given us another arrow to the bow, another way to build a picture. But what it will never do is to give us a complete picture. An audit, by the way, has never been in the complete picture. It's a snapshot of activity on a certain day when the auditor is there. So, unannounced audits was the major debate before 2020 about how much we want to move to that, and the sense of readiness for that. So bottom line, I'm absolutely convinced that given what I've seen this year, that remote auditing, virtual auditing can offer a significant, somebody wrote a comment, I think it was Nikos Bezas in the comments, about carbon footprint reduction of auditing. Yes, absolutely. We need to think about the sustainable aspect of our industry, the fact that everyone was on planes going everywhere. Do we need to duplicate that? Maybe not. But can you replace that intuitive human interaction in a plant, smelling the drain, asking what's behind that door, looking into the eyes of the production manager? The QA manager is usually honest, but the production guy, you know what I mean. So what's going on? Do I trust them? Can I work with these guys? This is something that we will need in the future as well. And in some form, I think, we are struggling and we are redefining our entire industry. You can also ask the question, is quality management necessary, by the way? It shouldn't be. Purely theoretically, our entire livelihoods should not exist, because production should do everything perfectly all the time, but they don't. And why don't they? Because of the kind of things that we find when we do quality audits, when we manage corrective and preventive actions. So this structure of feedback loop into improvement is something that will always exist.
I love the smell aspect.
Until we have something on the iPhone with a smell, we will always audit.
I'm sure that they are thinking about it, and also I like this comment about we should not exist, because it's something that I used to say to my teams, that our job, our mission is to make us redundant.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite interesting. Maybe a last question before we.
That's why you always get more headcount in a crisis. By the way, it works the other way. When something goes wrong, then that's when you ask for resources.
Thanks, Sesame. And before we take a round of questions, and please, some of you have posted some questions on the different social networks. So please continue to do so. Maybe Faisal, to you about EI. There are some companies offering EI solutions and to be able to read reports, to maybe write reports. Is this something that you have already looked into it or invested in, or how do you see it for the future to take some burden of the auditors?
Yes, of course. I mean, we should look at this, and I would use exactly the same word than John just said before. I mean, have the same impression. We will have to move forward with the new technologies. We need to see how we can help auditors to do audits, and we need to keep those technologies as a plan B whenever we have a new crisis again. But as far as you exist. As far as you guys, the liquid John is drinking cannot be designed and produced virtually. Auditors have to go on site. I mean, if those guys in the plants can produce a product somewhere remotely, totally remotely, if they cannot do it, packaging and everything, if the recipe and everything, if they can't do it virtually, we have to go on site as auditors.
Well, so 3D printing is one of the future challenges. Yeah.
That's true.
But okay.
So as far as this is not happening yet, we need to go on site. We cannot replace auditors, but of course, a combination of both. This is something hybrid solutions might be absolutely taken into consideration. So I share fully the impression of what John said before.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Also.
One last word, because before going forward, because thank you, Erica and John, for what you said, how to help CBs and to hire auditors and attract them. There's one simple idea just to keep in mind. The auditors, the junior auditors, are coming always, or 90% of time, they are coming from food manufacturers' sites. Okay, so the only thing you can do to help is to promote this possibility for them. There is a bridge between the food manufacturers and CBs. So. For our attraction.
Okay.
And the other way, we steal your folks as well, obviously. So it's mutual.
That's right. Thank you.
Great. So if you have any questions, please post them. I'm going to check what we have here. We talked about the comment from Nikos. I have, should the CPO be standardizing the requirements to be an auditor? Is it possible? Do you think it's possible to harmonize the requirements for auditors?
Well, that's certainly our ambition. So that auditors, have a coherent set of competencies that are accepted by everybody. Yeah, same message.
Okay, great.
Faisal and I were both on the same auditor competence working group in GFSI for a long time. It's not as easy as it sounds.
Yeah. But there's a new one, right? I'd be very rich.
Yeah.
Another question from Roberto Buttini. What about audit data sharing from about same
suppliers? To share with anyone except Barilla is the answer, Roberto. So.
Yeah. This is typically, there are some initiatives locally in some countries where, sharing data of audits is something that could be accepted maybe in some critical cases, why not? But this is not something which would work. I mean, every specific checklist, every specific prescribers for audit, they have a single objective which is properly designed for their own purpose. So it's very complex too, and I mean, it's not realistic.
Yeah, and it also especially with food safety issues, there's huge legal complexity. If you find a deviation which is a food safety implication and you disapprove a supplier, how do you communicate that to other companies? It's really careful and tendentious. So between companies is tricky. I think that's one of the roles I think of GFSI in the future, is to address this complexity, the legal complexity of liability if you find a major issue.
Agree.
Okay. Any other comment that I see? Well, anyway, if you have any questions, you can post it in the comments of the webinar, and I'm sure that we will answer to them in the next in the next days. Just seeing if there is something. Okay, I cannot see any other question yet. So I want to thank you, the three of you. Thank you for giving us your most precious treasure, which is your time to share. And I think we will meet soon, I hope, in real, not only through virtual means. Nevertheless, I wanted to speak about the coming conference, Erica, which will be in end of March.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it. I thought it'd be very rude of me to make a shameless plug for the GFSI conference on your fine webinar, but seeing as you've mentioned it, thank you very much. So we are going virtual for the first time ever. It's going to be a challenge, like it is for everybody who's taking something, into the virtual world for the first time. The benefit of that, I guess, is that people that wouldn't normally be able to come because of the weird and wonderful locations that we host our conferences in. So this is more accessible for the first time ever. So we would hugely encourage people, if they've never been before, to try the virtual version. It's a bit cheaper. It's going to be as close to the real thing as we can possibly get. There's going to be plenty of opportunity for networking, the usual exhibits, plenary sessions, tech talks, etc., etc. But there is something very new about it, which may encourage or deter. On the third day of the conference, it's people's opportunity to come and ask GFSI anything. So you can come and ask us whatever you want, and we will be there to answer your questions. So we're very, very excited to do this. We've never done it before. So if you don't come for anything else, please do come and ask us anything at all. We're really looking forward to seeing you. So thanks for the opportunity. It's the 23rd to the 25th of March. Thank you.
Just let me put it again. Yeah, and you can find here the links to register, to ask us questions, and I'm sure that we are all four of us are really open through LinkedIn if you have any questions related to this topic to ask us, because I think that connection and collaboration is also very, very important in our field of work, because we cannot have all the expertise in one person, so we are stronger together. Thank you very much for this time again, and hope to see you very, very soon.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Thank you. Merci.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Grazie mille. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you all, and thank you for all those who are listening. And again, if you want to continue sharing comments on the webinar, you are welcome to do so.
Okay.